So hello again, internet. It's Tommy here from Finland, the Philippines. And this time I'm going to tell you a story about how I end up in the Philippines in the first place. So how does a man from northern Finland end up in the Philippines? Well, it started of my interest in Asian cultures, especially in China in the first place, and Chinese language, Mandarin. I studied that for 1.5 years in my hometown Oulu, which is actually a southern border of the Lapland, kind of 100 kilometers below the polar circle. But it's a big city in Finland, 200,000 people about. So we have a lot of things there, but also Chinese teachers. So I studied that on my own and also in the home university. I read the books about Chinese culture and etc. like that. I followed many YouTube channels, especially Serbensa, which is now like 2 million followers, and he had to escape China actually. But anyhow, my dream was to travel in China, which I did for about 3 months in 2013, and that was great. The best time in my adult life, I think, like at least travel wise. It was so great that I couldn't believe. I didn't want to stop it until I end up in Bangkok, and that was like wow, even like tenfold to China. Much more fun than communist China or whatever, capitalist communist, whatever it is, but very strict, and China is much more boring than Southeast Asia generally. And except the nature is nice, it's different everywhere. But the Chinese people are some nice people, of course, but the rural people are tough to handle and they are not so welcoming many times. At least to me. Well, depends on your own experience. Anyhow, I had good and bad times in China, but in Southeast Asia I had only good times. Something intriguing about the Southeast Asian culture that just lured me towards to staying here. So I traveled extra 1 month in Southeast Asia, Bangkok, northern Thailand and Laos, and from there to Vietnam, and I walked the border from northern Vietnam to China across the bridge and took a bus to Kunming, and I flew from Kunming to Chongqing and flew back home to Oulu. But the thing is that I always wanted to go back to Asia, and I had no certain plans, just to go somewhere where the flight is the cheapest. Because from northern Finland you first have to fly at least to Helsinki or Central Europe and then have the cheap flight. Usually from Oulu it's very expensive to fly anywhere, so it's extra few $100 to the ticket. Well, the cheapest flight was 2015 to Malaysia, so I flew there to Penang. And on that journey I end up in the Philippines in the end. But first I traveled again Malaysia, Thailand and Vietnam. But in Vietnam, my buddy from Oulu happened to be there same time. He came from Cambodia to meet me. And we both were sitting there in the restaurant having beers and chatting, and he told me that he heard good things about the Philippines. And I was like, yeah, I heard also good things about the Philippines, because I met a older German gentleman in Penang who told me that he's retired in the Philippines and his kids living in Germany, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And so I thought to me it would be impossible almost to like live in Asia full time. So we decided that we fly to Philippines with my Finnish buddy the next week, which we did. And we end up in Manila in Santa Mesa. And 2 young bachelors from Finland there, we partied a lot. in Burgos Street. Of course, that's the most famous party street in Makati. Oh, which was fun. We were like 30-year-olds. We had a lot of fun there. Mostly just bar hopping, nothing special. But Philippines was something else compared to any other Southeast Asian country, and definitely to China. So that was actually the same trip. I was on my way to Australia to go there as a working holiday, like a visa holder. But I ended up staying in the Philippines for 9 months, and I went to Australia the last day I could enter it still with the valid visa. And the thing is that I planned to stay in the Philippines 2 weeks originally. I arrived here like February, but I left 9 months later the first time. So that's much I loved the Philippines the first time I landed here. And I cannot say definitely what was the reason. Well, probably the beautiful women has something to do with it. Like everybody knows here, Philippines has the most beautiful women in the world. To my perspective, well, every country has insanely beautiful women, but here, to my taste, it's like that. When we were in Manila, we had some argument with my buddy, and then I split the road. I decided I fly to Central Philippines, to Iloilo, because in Finnish language, ilo means happiness. So happiness, Iloilo. So that's a central Visayan area kind of. I had no plan. I had my Lonely Planet, which I looked a little bit where to go, and the city maps are there, so that's helpful. Well, I met many travelers along the way, met many friends, which I keep no contact with anymore. It's 8 years ago. But I had so much fun time just going around this archipelago country that I never wanted to leave. And from Iloilo, I end up in Bacolod, which is natural the opposite of each other. Bacolod was much more boring than Iloilo. Iloilo is still my favorite functioning city in the Philippines. It's the cleanest, most European city what I encountered here in 8 years. Visited Guimaras Island, which I had all right time. I don't remember much 8 years ago, but then I read about where to go next. There was 2 options: Sugar Beach, Sipalay, or Dumaguete. And then in the Lonely Planet it said so nice things about Dumaguete, so I went there. And I ended up finding my first girlfriend in the Philippines from Dumaguete. That made me stay for a while, like a few months there. And I had so fun time, especially in Why Not in the Boulevard, in the disco, and I rent my first apartment also in Cebu then, with the help of my Danish buddy Brian. And I worked in his call center for a while, but it's not the work for me, so I never worked again in a call center in my life. Now I do a lot of different things to support myself, which I tell in later videos. Well, young guys, I found young Scandinavian friends in Dumaguete. There's always been a small community, mostly call center workers. So we hung around, we lived in the same neighborhood, had a fun time. Everyone had a different girlfriends, not the same all the time. Joke. You know the girls sometimes go around certain kind of you know what I'm talking about if you've been here. Joke. I mean that, by that I mean that the ones who date foreigners, they many times date one foreigner after one foreigner. That's what I mean by that. Well, something happened in Dumaguete, some drama with the girl, so I had to kind of escape. I took a night boat to Cebu. That's how I discovered Cebu. and the boat connection the same evening. And there was a Finnish bar in Cebu called Semi-Final. I heard about the bar already in Manila when I was there, so I wanted to visit that one. Of course, it's a weird thing, you come from Finland and then you're looking for Finnish things abroad, but come on, it's the same thing for Americans and British and every nationality. You start to miss the things from your home country, of course, after a while traveling, after a few months. So we had salmiakki kossu there in the salmiakki hard liquor in the bar, and just talking Finnish is refreshing once in a while. And I also making connections there to other Finns and other foreigners, expats. I still remember the guys from there 8 years ago, and I see them in other bars in Cebu, owning other bars. The same guys still hang around there, which is nice. And we still remember each other after years and years. And from Cebu, it was time to go to Moalboal, which ended up being my home, kind of a home for 2 years, on and off, when I was not in Australia. So the rest of my time, the first time I arrived to Philippines, I ended up in the Moalboal, and I really enjoyed the little diving party town. That's a crazy place, and now it's even bigger than 8 years ago. It's changed a lot, so it's hardly the same place than then, and many of my buddies moved away already. But few still stay and live there. It's a good place for a visit, but for me it's not a good place for living. It's too small. I rather living in a city or a small city next to a bigger one. And Moalboal doesn't have any big place nearby, just 3 hours drive away. So from there I went to Australia with the working holiday visa. I was 30 years old. I had no job in Australia ready, so I went there jobless and first time in Australia. I could tell about that in another video. But I made my way there. I ended up putting up my own painting business. That's one of my trades, painting, decorator, master of the craft in Finland. That was doing great, but it's a hard work, so I just don't want to do it all the time. So maybe that's a good ending for this video in the Perth in Cottesloe. So remember guys, that's all for now, and stay awesome. Bye.